Hello and welcome to another fun-filled edition of Adam's Music Box. Now, riddle me this, ladies and gentlemen. What do Tom Jones have in common with AC/DC? What does even Tom Jones have in common with AC/DC, other than the fact that I don't know anything about grammar and probably never will? Well, they have a drummer in common. Yes, at one point in time, at arguably the peaks of popularity of both, Chris Slade was the drummer in both of those outfits. But he was a lot more than that. I would say that Chris Slade is one of the most versatile and talented drummers to play on so many important rock and pop albums. And he just is able to do things that a lot of other drummers who came out of his generation were not able to do. And that is play in different contexts. The drummers who came out before him and after him were much more aligned with floating between genres. In Slade's era, people typically stuck with one thing for a long time, but not Chris Slade. He was so utterly versatile. Now, he played on all of the big Tom Jones hit albums of the 60s. Along Came Jones, From the Heart, Atomic Jones, Green Green Grass of Home, huge hit, Delilah, and even played with Tom Jones in Vegas. This was the epicenter of your sort of pop world. He was playing drums for a great pop singer, one of the best, by the way. You really ought to hear Tom Jones live. He doesn't skip a beat, doesn't miss a note. Wonderful stuff. But he did other things following his departure from Tom Jones's band. Chris Slade did. He played with Olivia Newton-John, he played with Tom Paxton, and eventually landed on the debut album of Manfred Mann's Earth Band, a very progressive, really cool band that I recently did a video on because they happen to be one of my favorites. And he played on all of their big hit albums and big hit singles. Well, their big hit single, Blinded by the Light, yes, that is Chris Slade's drumming, and what fine drumming it is. And he went on to play with many others. He spent a year in Uriah Heep, a year with Gary Newman, a year with Denny Lane of Wings, and before that, the early iteration of the Moody Blues. In the middle of the 80s, he was part of a supergroup, one of my other favorite bands of all time, The Firm. And this was really a band of virtuosi. You had the great Paul Rogers on vocals, Jimmy Page of Zeppelin fame on guitar. Paul Rogers, for those who don't know, Bad Company and Free. The fretless bass wonder kid, Tony, where am I? Mark Mike, no, Tony Franklin. It's one of those days, folks. And of course, on drums, Chris Slade. And then in the 90s, he joined AC/DC. And things came full circle as they tend to do from Tom Jones to AC/DC. Now, what's the point of all this? Well, just looking at Chris Slade, listening to him play, you can tell he's a great drummer. He is. But he really proved a point that versatility, no matter where you begin your career, even if you come of age at a time when drummers were sort of expected to stick to one style, having the ability to do diverse things and to play well in different environments, it will mean that you're never out of a gig. And Chris Slade hardly ever was, because he was and remains one of the great drummers of all time, if you ask me. Listen, and you may well agree. As always, like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Take care.